All right, here with Damon. Ben, you've been very, very close to this fight, done heaps of interviews, amazing content coming from Main Event. And obviously up and close and personal with them today. What did you make from their energy compared to the build-up?
Yeah, well, we know what we're getting, don't we? We've got a character, an entertainer in Tony Harrison, and he just has been so good for the promotion of this fight. I think he believes most of what he says, but it's great entertainment regardless. Whereas Tszyu, I think he's getting angrier as we get closer. He's had enough of a lot of what has been said. A lot of it's questioning where he is and whether he deserves anything that he's getting. So it is pretty personal to him, and you can just tell he's getting colder and colder. Some of the stuff he was saying yesterday and today about drowning Tony Harrison and how expressive he is about that. Like, you can tell there's that really angry, sadistic side of the soul taker coming out the closer and closer we get to this fight.
What have you made? Because like Harrison's been kind of trolling Tim a lot, and a lot of it you can't tell if Tim's kind of understood that or if it's gone over his head. What have you made of all that?
Yeah, I don't know how much attention Tim pays to any of that sort of stuff. Obviously, when, say, we're doing a face-off and they're sitting opposite each other, or a press conference and they're alongside each other, he has to hear it. But I don't think he goes and seeks out. For example, I doubt he sat through the whole Tony Harrison interview I did in New York or the subsequent ones. I think he sort of just lets that theatre all play out. I watched him train his full session the other day, and his focus on that is just different to what I've ever seen from him. He did a 2.5-hour session and just went hard the whole time. And when he finished, he sort of wiped himself with a towel, and he was ready to go again. You know, he's just working so hard, and he's so focused on winning this because of a lot of the stuff that has been said by Harrison is stuff that he would have heard elsewhere, like it's his dad's name, like he doesn't deserve this, like he's taken the elevator and others taking the stairs, all that stuff. So he's trying to get rid of all that. He's motivated to get rid of all that. He probably doesn't need Harrison to say it, but Harrison's saying it anyway.
Surely, though, a win over Harrison does kind of dispel all that talk, because it's such a risky fight. And talking about throwback fighters, like, who on earth, with a guaranteed undisputed title shot, just sitting there, will be like, I'm going to take like a really, really tough opponent and just risk everything? No,
I think you're right. I think it does extinguish all of that. It has to. The fact that he's willing to take the fight gets rid of a fair bit of it. Just the confidence that he has in his own ability. But if he beats Tony Harrison, the only man ever to beat Jermell Charlo, a former world champion, in such a risky fight with so much pressure on him and pressure on everyone around him, essentially, because he's gambling everyone's livelihoods essentially in this fight. So if he wins against Tony Harrison, you can't question anything about him anymore, and he goes into a fight with Jermell Charlo really well positioned to beat him.
Surely Charlo, once if he sees that victory, he'll be like, okay, all this stuff I've been saying about, even if he doesn't say it publicly, internally, you have to be like, I've got to take this kid serious now.
Yeah, interesting to think who Charlo will be going for. He's going to be part of the Showtime broadcast. They're broadcasting from the United States. He'll be in the studio there as part of that show. I wonder who he's going for. Does he want Tszyu to win because he sees him as an easier fight? Does he want Harrison to win because he knows he's already beaten him, he stopped him in the rematch, and he sees that as an easier path, and it's more of the known factor than what Tszyu is? And whoever wins, how's he going to feel about that? Is he going to want to have a trilogy fight with Tony Harrison, who has outboxed him at stages of their fights? Is he going to want to fight against Tszyu, who he has to fight against, who is the fighter on the rise, who's just dispatched someone that he had a lot of trouble with? So, it's fascinating to know where he is with all of that. I know he said various things, but really, when he sits and thinks on it himself, I do wonder how he feels about this fight and how he's going to feel afterwards.
Finally, do you have a prediction? How do you see this fight playing out? I know as Aussies we want to see Tim get up, but what's your objective view on how it plays out?
I think Tszyu needs to solve a puzzle called Tony Harrison, and I think he's going to struggle with that for a while. I think there's going to be times a few rounds into this fight where in commentary we're going, Tony Harrison's doing really well. His long, brilliant jab, one of the best jabs pound for pound in global boxing, is having an effect. His movement is confusing Tszyu at times, or at least making him work harder and giving him looks that he's never had before. But I just think that Tszyu, given the way he's training, how focused he is, how determined he seems, and the motivation, like the boundless motivation that he has to win this fight, will see him start to get ahead of Harrison later in the fight. I just feel that at the back end of the fight it'll be Tszyu who is able to work harder. So I think Tim wins the fight, but I'm not going to be at all surprised if Tony Harrison outboxes him. So it's a fascinating fight. That's why we fight the fights, and yeah, it's just a great one to call, because you listen to anyone in the US and they're saying Harrison wins. What are you talking about? But then you look at the markets and you look at the buzz here, and everyone's thinking, oh, Tszyu knocks him out. So I'm sort of halfway in between those two, but just really looking forward to a really special event.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one to remember. On the undercard, there's some awesome matchups there. It's almost like an Australian version of like the famous Don King show from the 90s. It'll just like each fight could literally be like a main event. Which fight do you see potentially stealing the show?
Well, it could be any of them. It could be even a fight that's not on the pay-per-view in Ben Marnie and Koen Mazudia. That's an outstanding fight. But Isaac Hardman and Rowan Murdoch, I think stylistically it's going to be a really good fight. Murdoch wants to box, obviously. He's a very good boxer, but I think Hardman will be able to drag him into a fight, and that'll be brilliant. The real question mark, I think, is around Yunieski Gonzalez, the light heavyweight who's come from Cuba to fight against Paulo Acuso. Acuso's having his fourth professional fight against someone who has been to the very top level in the world. What version of Yunieski Gonzalez we get in that fight is going to be the great mystery of Sunday, because if he's at his best, he is a massive favourite for that fight on paper against someone having their fourth pro fight. But if he's not at his best, if he shows his age, if he isn't the fighter he used to be, then Acuso can get a really, really impressive victory that does propel him globally. So yeah, that's the co-main, and I didn't even mention Nikita Zubo-Belbin, two undefeated fights. There's just so many good fights, and TJ Doheny, former world champion, against Sam Goodman. So it's a great undercard, and excited about all of them, but really excited about Tszyu, Tony Harrison.
Awesome, thanks so much, Ben. Look forward to hear you call the fights.
Cannot wait. See you there, Mickey.